Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Principles for Change Management. I'm Sarah Nicastro, Editor-in-Chief of Field Technologies, and I'll be moderating today's event. I'm personally very excited for today's presentation because in all of the interviews I've done with companies that have deployed technology solutions, which are probably hundreds at this point, the most common thing that I hear from them when we talk about things that they would have liked to do differently or, missteps that they have made has always been around change management and not thinking about it in advance or not properly planning for change management, underestimating what a big issue it can be. And so to me, today's presentation is very exciting. Today you're going to be hearing from Sharon Mora, Vice President of IT Transformation Strategy at Tyco. And she's going to be sharing with you her firsthand experience in mastering the art of change management. She has a ton of great information that she's going to be sharing with you, so you're going to want to make sure that you're taking good notes. Following Sharon's presentation, Vidya Chidaga, Director of Product Marketing at ServiceMax, will explain briefly the role ServiceMax plays in helping companies with projects like Tyco's. Following the presentation today, we are going to be holding a question and answer session, so you'll have an opportunity to pick Sharon's brain on the topic of change management. While we'll be holding the Q&A at the end of the presentations, you can feel free to ask questions as we go along. So as something pops up while Sharon's talking, feel free to go ahead and type a question in on your screen. We'll get to as many as we can following the presentation, and any that we can't get to, we will certainly follow up on after the event today. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to start today's presentation. Sharon?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Happy to be here. Tyco, let me tell you a little bit about Tyco to put some context around some of our change management journey. Tyco is a $10 billion leader in fire protection and security solutions. We have 68,000 employees in about 49 countries. And our goal is to advance safety and security by finding smarter ways to save lives, improve businesses, and protect where people live and work. This is a company that our employees are very passionate about because our products save lives. We protect more than 2.5 million worldwide customers with global mission-critical solutions. I'm confident that every day you are walking underneath or beside or around our solutions, whether you're shopping in a retail store, whether you're traveling through an airport, you're vacationing on a cruise ship, or you're sitting in your office building. Our products are probably there protecting you. So let's switch gears and talk about change. First of all, change management is different than project management. Project management is about schedule, budget, and scope. Change management is only about people. So it's the actions taken by us to help employees transition from current state, whatever that may be, to future state. A study by ProSci of 327 project leaders indicated that failure to manage the people side of change and the associated resistance that you have from employees was the #1 obstacle to project success. My personal belief is that employees want to do a good job. So then why are they resistant when confronted with change? This curiosity led me over many years of trying to implementing solutions, IT solutions for the organization, to really look closely at change management, change leadership, and specifically the social neuroscience of change. And in the simplest form, what I've learned is that our brain is wired to maximize reward and minimize threat. There's 5 domains that we normally talk about of social experience: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. If any one of these is threatened or called into question, our immediate response, every one of us, our immediate response is to resist that change. Normally when we're implementing new systems, new technologies, we're impacting all 5 domains of social experience at one time. So a significant amount of change has happened. So as an example, implementing a new system, there may be folks questioning certainty about their future. Will they be able to adapt to this new system? Do they have the right skills? Will their job be impacted or changed in any way? So change management is not about eliminating resistance, because that is impossible. As humans, it's our natural reaction of our brain. But the goal of change management is to reduce the gap between when the change is introduced and when the change is actually adopted. We want to make that time period as small as possible so we're not disrupting productivity, customer satisfaction, and in the end, the return on investment on on the technology that we're implementing. This here is a study by the Corporate Executive Board. It highlights the importance of focusing on this topic for any new system implementation. So if you read this from left to right, you'll see that there's an investment that was made of $100 million. There's an expected return of $115 million. But then, then things happen. And the biggest thing that happens here is the $22 million shown here, which is really the value leakage that we have on that return, and it's low end-user adoption. Unfortunately, studies show that 66% of employees are resistant to using a new system. This significantly decreases our chances of realizing the business value that we had promised in the beginning. In addition, I think it was McKinsey who found that organizations that adopt good change management best practices can realize up to twice the business results when they have this high employee adoption. So there's a huge business case around getting smart around change management. The good thing is that there is just a plethora of information about what good change management looks like. There's many approaches that you can read about. Cotter's 8 Steps is very popular. ProSci actually has a certification program, so I'm ProSci certified as a change practitioner. So there's many avenues you can go to get this information. I think what I find curious is that while there's a tremendous amount of information out there, we rarely do an excellent job at implementing change management as part of our projects and part of our deployment of technology. So what I want to share with you today is, a few things that I think are tangible, actionable takeaways that you can have to just get started with change management. I think sometimes there's so much out there that it's overwhelming, and many of this is just about taking a few things and working on them and doing them well. So I want to talk about 5 key principles that I feel are critical and principles that we're using with our implementation of ServiceMax to our field installation and service technicians. And those are really just simply assessing the change, engaging the head and the heart, creating a change agent network, leading through the resistance, and 5 is leading through the adoption cycle. So let's talk about each one of those. This is really simple, right? Assessing the change. Think about what's changing. Think about the relative scale of the change. Forecast the likelihood of success. When you think about what's changing, think about it holistically, all aspects of the change. So the first aspect I would look at is culture. When we implement this new system, are there new behaviors, new expectations? Are we now expecting, for example, that our field technicians are more transparent with how they spend their day? That's a culture change for them. Is there any people change? Will there be new teams, new managers, reductions in force? Will we reward people differently? Structure, new interactions, new vendors we might need to think about that our employees will need to interact with. And then, of course, process. What is the level of process change? And then lastly is the tool, of course, the tools, the technologies that will be changing. So think about all of those 5 aspects when you're assessing what's changing. When I think about our implementation, at least in the U.S., for our retail vertical of ServiceMax, We have 750 end users, most of those remote technicians. We have over 3 million installed products. We have about 21 integrations to and from our ERP. The team's been on the legacy system for over 18 years. And the project team itself is about 140 people. So for us, this is a fairly significant project that we knew from the start we needed to have some solid change management plans around. One tool that I've used in the past is this DICE calculation. It's provided by the Boston Consulting Group, and it just helps you forecast that likelihood of success. So how long is the project, the duration? How credible and knowledgeable are your project leaders? Are the people on the team? Have they done this before? Right? We want people on our team with been there, done that experience. If they're not, you should be bringing people in from the outside to help you with this, and on change management as well, if you don't have that been there, done that experience. Think about the commitment of the senior leadership team. How engaged are they? And then the commitment of the employees. How engaged are they? And is this a positive change for them or a negative change? And the only way to really fully understand that is by asking them and really understanding their sentiment. And then the level of effort. And then there's a calculation here at the bottom, and it'll tell you if you're in the win zone, the worry zone, or the woe zone. I think we're always in the war zone, but the woe zone. So this is just one tool, but basically you don't need a tool. You can just go through and think about all the different aspects of the change, and for yourself, because it's all relative to the organization and how much change that organization's used to, and how solid you are in your change management skills. Just assess where you think you are, and it'll help you define where you need to go. The other thing to note about assessing change is that it's not a one-time exercise. As you go through your implementation steps, you will receive new information. You will be changing things. People on the team, depending on the duration of the project, will be coming and going from the team, from the organization. So as an example for us, we had some restructuring that happened where people's leadership changed, who they reported to changed. While that wasn't a direct result or related to our project at all, it certainly was something we had to assess as part of our change management plan and make some adjustments to how we are working through our initiative to deploy the solution. Throughout, we make it each team member's responsibility to identify and document changes. So you can't just do it at the end or do it at the start. It's something that the team members need to do throughout the entire project. What's changing, what's changing, what's changing? We need to constantly be asking that question. We'll learn more as we go along. This will help to inform our change management plan, our project plan as well, but also our training and communications that are part of that change management plan. It'll be very important for. Secondly, I call this engaging the head and the heart. Successful change is about individuals, not organizations. And successful change is about feeling, not just thinking. So it's one of Cotter's key principles for successful change that I know I've adopted as a very important one. People change when they see a truth that influences their feelings, a picture of the opportunities ahead that can connect to the head and the heart. It's less about what they read. It's less about analysis. That informs their thinking, but it doesn't inform their feeling. Think about using storytelling as a way to engage the head and the heart. Producing report after report or communication after communication will not help here at all. Individual conversations are effective. Small group conversations are effective. As well, I would say that we should always be I call it top and tail communications with, why is this changing and what's in it for me? If we don't have those two components, we will never get to this see, feel, change aspect of change management. It's super important as well, though, as we think about how we communicate. And we don't make it up. We're genuine. Employees, of course, all of us, I'm sure, can sniff out spin very quickly, and the project will lose credibility if it's seen that way. So we need to tell our employees, what we know when we know it. One of the things that we did at the start, actually at our kickoff, as we're rolling out our service platform, ServiceMax, is we had everybody in the room work in a small group and create their own elevator speech. So it's a small paragraph where they personally have to think about, why are we doing this and how will this help? So each one of them were given an audience. Your audience is the customer. Your audience is a field technician that hasn't heard about this project yet. Your audience is senior management who meets you in the elevator and wants to know what this thing is about. And it was a great opportunity for every individual to have to think through this for themselves, really get that frontal lobe working and come up with their elevator speech. So that's just one little technique that I've used in the past for this. Here's an example just of some of the elevator speeches that we had here. The first one, there will be a need for training, but ultimately it will make our jobs easier. The audience was the field technicians. Addressing it head on. We know there's a fear of change. We're confident we can overcome that. ServiceMax will be easy to use, give you more information, reduce your boot time. So, on and on why we're doing it and what's in it for them. I think this was a great example of an elevator speech that one of our employees came up with on the team. The third principle is really about creating your change agent network. I love this quote from Elise Olding from Gartner. I've spent a lot of time speaking with her about change management, and we've talked about this topic in particular. I do believe that change resistance is a myth. There are things that we can do to really eliminate resistance, but it's usually not resistance. It's employees not understanding what we're trying to do and why. So the quote here is, employees support enterprise goals when they understand what needs to be done. Peer advocates put a face on the change and leverage trusted, informal leaders to create understanding. That's where the change agent network plays. So me, sitting up in corporate saying this will be good for you, they don't know who I am. And even if they know who I am, well, they do know who I am, but I'm not the one they need to hear from. They need to hear from their colleagues sitting next to them. They need to hear from their direct supervisor. In fact, some work done by ProSe identified that to an incredibly large extent, the most effective communicators of change were the individual's immediate supervisor. And on an initiative such as rolling out a new platform, often that middle manager layer is really kept out of the details because they have their day-to-day job to do. But if you're going to bring that change management into the project at all, which of course you need to do, I would suggest that change management is the number one area they should be spending their time. Having the right people involved, whether they're informal or formal leaders, people that are influential to the individual employees, be the ones that communicate, is really what a change agent network is about. It also helps to tap into those bottoms-up communications. So I hear from the project team every day how we're doing, but I also need to hear about how the employees are doing. As we've dived into this a little more, one of the things that we did just before the holidays is we sent out an assessment, and we sent it out to the main team members, the 140 team members, and we asked questions around their awareness of the initiative, which should be very high, and it was, their desire for the change, their knowledge to be able to change, their ability to change, and as we move forward, we'll be asking them more about their ability to reinforce the change. We'll be sending that same survey out this month to all 750 employees to see where their head is at as far as those aspects of the change process: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. Tell you a little bit about our change agent network. I think I skipped a slide here. We created change agents by work stream. So we had a dispatch work stream, a contract work stream, a knowledge-based work stream as an example. So we created change agents by work stream, and then it's kind of blurred out here, but below is a lot more detail around the entire change agent network. These were some of the change agent leaders that we had put in place. Their responsibilities are to anticipate issues, act as a sounding board for the organization, provide suggestions and recommendations on how we address the change. Their role is also to communicate the change to the end users. As I said, they're the most effective people. Those frontline people are the most effective people in communicating change. Certainly, they're helping us to translate corporate speak into the realities that the coworkers understand. So how I might explain something will be very, very different in how that regional dispatcher might be explaining the change. They're a resource for their colleagues, so if their colleagues are having questions, they can direct them to where they can get the answers. And at the end of the day, we are expecting them to be a positive voice that will help us move this change forward. So the change agent network, I have some examples here of what to think about when you think about who should be on that network. Certainly people that want to participate, have a desire to embrace the change. People that in general have been good team players in the past, and they're mature enough to fully participate. Even in light of ambiguity, which you will certainly have as you work through the implementation process. Of course, they have to be great communicators, and I think most importantly, this number 6, credibility at the grassroots level, is very, very important. They have to be individuals that are respected and influential within the organization, and often that's an informal type of influence, not a formal manager-type relationship. So something to really dig into and uncover who are the right people to have on that. Think about high potentials and folks that you want to provide new opportunities. The fourth principle I want to speak about is leading through the resistance. This is really a leadership requirement. So we talk about change management. I prefer the words change leadership. Every leader that's involved in the implementation and deployment really needs to get that it's their role to lead through the resistance and promote honest, healthy dialogue with their employees. Some of the ways to get started addressing the level of resistance we can talk about. So the first one is, I don't get it. So it's very intellectual. They don't have the information. They're confused. Maybe we keep communicating or sending out the same memo, and it doesn't resonate with them. So it's very important to find multiple ways to really make your case. Before you talk about how you want to do things, make sure everybody understands why. It's important to be a broken record here. So I think, you probably heard you need to communicate 8 times before something is heard. And one of the reasons for that is that every single individual changes at their own individual pace. So well, maybe you explain this and person A got it. Person D maybe doesn't get it until the 10th time they hear it. So it's the way people internalize change. It's not good. Some people are good, some people are bad. It's not it at all. It's just a process that all of us go through when we're confronted with change, and each one of us goes through that individually. So think about all the different ways that you can communicate and different ways that you can make the case. One way I can guarantee you will not be enough, and doing it once absolutely will not be enough. So be prepared to put time into your project plan for that. The second one is I don't like or trust you. So this is more emotional. People, are not sure if you are going to lead them to a good future state. Maybe they're, recalling something that happened in the past that they didn't like. Maybe, you haven't been upfront with them on changes that have happened in the past, so why should they trust you this time? So it's really time to rebuild any damaged relationships, tend to any neglected relationships. So it's something to think about as you're kicking off any sort of technology implementation. Who are all the stakeholder groups that will be impacted? What is my relationship as a leader with that group? Do they know me? Do we have a fantastic working relationship? Or is this an area that I need to build that trust? Take responsibility if there's been anything that has led to an actual damaged relationship. But net, it's about keeping commitments and demonstrating that you're trustworthy. Absolutely, the Change Agent Network will help here because they're not just hearing from that one leader. They're hearing from multiple areas of the organization that's saying, this is good, we need to do this. The last one is I don't like it. Hey, if we're implementing the wrong technology, it's very clunky, it's hard to use, I probably don't like it either. So you're going to have more resistance to implementing something that's not easy to use. And that's why it's so critical as we select solutions that we really look at usability and flexibility of those solutions. But assuming that you've chosen the right path, the right solution for your organization, the goal here is to remove as much fear as you can and increase excitement about what's positive about the change. Again, emphasize what's in it for them. People need to believe that the change will serve them in some way. When any one of us is confronted with change, hey, I'm going to implement a new system for you, our first reaction is usually not, fantastic, tell me more, how can I support the organization? If we're honest with ourselves, usually our first reaction is, how does this impact me? Will my job be impacted? Should I buy that new car that I was going to buy this year, or should I put it off another year until things are more certain? So those are the types of things that immediately go through our mind. They might go through our mind in a nanosecond, but they could take months as well for folks to process that type of a reaction. Really engage people in the process as much as you possibly can. The process of selection, the process of building out and configuring and deploying. People support what they have been a part of building. Now, of course, for us, organization 750 people, they all have a day job. I can't involve them all in the project. But what we're focused on is making sure that if that individual, person 749, can't be involved in the actual project as we implement, that they are comfortable that there's a representative on the team that gets what they do, gets the work that they have to do every day, understands the customer that they're supporting, and is a good, solid representative for them, that they trust that person, whoever that person is on the team. For us, those are our work stream leaders that we've selected. Be honest. If the change is going to hurt them, folks are smart. they'll know or they'll be guessing. Maybe it doesn't, and they'll be guessing it anyway. Deal with those questions up front. Don't leave those things hanging. Your ability to be honest bolsters trust in you as a manager, as a leader of this change. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the tools of the trade that we normally use here as part of leading through the resistance. We talked about the change agent network. Of course, there's training. Make sure the training is not focused just on the new system, but it's focused on what is changing. So the training could be related to a new behavior that you want to see in the employees. It could be related to a new device that they need to use. It could be certainly related to whatever software you're deploying, and most importantly, could be related to processes that you're changing. So focus on what's changing. Continually build relationships. Use lots of different types of media to communicate. Everybody, I think every one of us has particular ways we like to communicate. So for us, we have chatter through Salesforce.com. We have employee portals. We have other social media tools here at Tyco. We have email, of course. We use all different ways to communicate. We've armed our managers with FAQs and what's in it for me stories. And we're holding our managers accountable for sharing that information with their team and making sure that it cascades. Our team members, our workstream leaders, are regularly joining team meetings and department meetings every week to give updates and statuses and answer questions, so they're very engaged with the entire 750. We have a lot of one-on-one communications for those that have concerns that'll be most impacted. And we've brought in internal and external experts. So internally, we have experts on Tyco, experts on our customers, experts on our current processes. Externally, we've brought in people that really understand the solution, that are really skilled in project management, that have skill in change management. So think about all the skills you'll need to pull off any implementation of technology, and make sure that you're looking at both internal and external, been there, done that experts. Executive support, of course, is always incredibly important, and governance. Tell you a little bit about our governance model, which I think is very helpful. So for us, we have an executive steering committee for our implementation. It's made up of the president, general manager, myself, and the VP of sales and operations. This team is very engaged. They show up to these meetings. They want to know what's going on, and they are questioning the employees as they're out and about and asking, what do you think about this ServiceMax implementation, so that folks can hear that this level of leadership is engaged and expecting us to deliver. We have an operating committee, and this is incredibly important for us. Myself and the VP of Sales and Ops sits on this, as well as our project managers. As you can see below, we have a project management office that's made up of our IT team, our ServiceMax team, Acumen, which is an external consultant helping us with overall project management, as well as implementation of Salesforce.com for our call center. And then we have a leader as well for the Tyco business team. So there's 4 project managers, 1 overall project manager. They also sit on the operating committee. And we use that time every 2 weeks to talk about what's going right, what's going wrong, what changes are being requested. Only the operating committee can approve any changes to scope or requirements. And we make sure that we're holding the team accountable and we're addressing any issues that are coming up, so we can make sure we're knocking down any roadblocks that the team has. I talked a little bit about partnering for success using internal and external. That dice score I showed you at the top talking about probability of success. One of the key attributes was integrity. Do we have the skills and credibility to pull off this change? So by strategically assigning both internal and external expertise, we're really getting the best of both worlds. It's also important that as leaders, as managers, we're assessing ourselves. Where do we, and our project leaders, where do we have gaps that we might need to bolster with help or education? The end result's not about getting all the glory. I did this. We did it by ourselves. We didn't get any help, and we were able to pull it off. It's not about getting the glory. It's about getting the end result and the ROI. And for us, making the ServiceMax implementation a raving success with our employees and with our customers. These are just another example of some of the tools of the trade that we're using. I think it was the Boston Consulting Group that found that 9 conversations ensure that key change messages stick. Basically, when you feel you've communicated about 3 times more than you ever thought you should have, you're probably about hitting it right. It's really important as well to communicate in small interactive group sessions or one-on-one. This is our communication plan from our ServiceMax implementation. We focus on the hard facts, the why, the what, the when, the who, and most importantly, what's in it for the individual. We also include in our communication some of the less tangibles like pride and workmanship. We know when we look at the culture of our organization that our employees are incredibly proud of what we do and of what they do every day. So we're using that as a lever in our communications plan. Job satisfaction and self-worth as well win the team's emotional buy-in. So think about, for your organization, what will win your team's emotional buy-in to the change. And make sure that you have a set of core messaging that you say consistently over and over and over again. So consistency is your friend. Say it 9 times. Have the same type of consistency over and over from a core messaging perspective. The small group, the one-on-one conversations that I mentioned, we have our business lead, Dan, who as I said, joins weekly team meetings. He is just every week making the rounds. He's constantly on the phone with stakeholders and employees. He's keeping them up to date, continually pulsing the organization so we can adjust our plan and approach. So that continual pulse of the organization is really, really critical for success. And you need to make sure you have someone on your team that's going to have the time to do that. If they are heads down just managing the project, they will not have that kind of time. And that's the main reason we brought in an external project manager so that our business lead, Dan, could really focus on staying connected with the organization versus connected with the project plan. So the 5th principle I want to discuss is leading through the adoption cycle. So let's look through this. At the start, there's early adopters. What we can do here is we can highlight what the adoption will get them, right? The what's in it from you. Communicate the rationalization of the change, the why, and build on the excitement generated. So if there's any opportunity to get early adopters in as far as getting them up on the new technology, or at least in and seeing it so that they can start sharing their excitement and the momentum that they feel around getting this solution implemented. It's great to have early adopters, and it will really help you to gain momentum and quickly move to the next step of the adoption life cycle. And that step is really getting the majority of the end users adopted. So of course you're bringing them live, you're bringing them on, but on the new technology, but have they really adopted it? What we often see is that folks are like, yep, you turned off my old system, you turned on my new system, and so here in IT we think, job well done, let's move on to the next initiative. But what's really happening out there is people are struggling to use the new solution. They often go back to their Excel sheets and their Post-it notes to make the work happen. They're very creative because they know they need to get the job done. They want to keep the customer happy, and they will find workarounds, and they do find workarounds to make that happen. So it's important for us to really understand that, know that we can't just walk away once we flip that switch, that we stick around and we reinforce. Great way to do this is highlighting the wins. Who's using the system? What kind of insights did they gain from it? Were they able to do something faster? Were they able to keep a customer happier? Communicate the stories to this majority, the early adopter stories. Use those team meetings, those department meetings to discuss the benefits that you saw from the early adopters. Ask the early adopters to tell 2 colleagues, right? Every one of you, I want you to go tell 2 colleagues, what you learned, what you know, and your excitement around this initiative. So that will help you to get the majority of the employees adopting the new solution. Next on the adoption life cycle is their laggards. So there'll be some people that, will just leave it to the end. They're maybe more resistant than others, maybe weren't as aware as others. They require significantly greater proof of value. So, prove it to me. This is really important where managers need to absolutely be front and center, working one-on-one with these employees. It's also a great opportunity for some of the early adopters, some of the folks in the majority, to act as peer coaches. So assign a coach to these groups of laggards, either one-on-one or in small groups, to help them through the change. And again, keep headlining on whatever social media you have, whatever communication tool you have, the wins across the majority of users. And the last aspect of the adoption life cycle is the naysayers. My recommendation here is to ignore these. Recognize when pursuit is not worth the effort and make alternate plans. In the end, as we implement new technologies here at Tyco and we use good change management, good change leadership practices, we're really building capabilities for persistent change. As I'm sure all of you in every organization is undergoing it, it's a time of just ongoing persistent change. It's not one and done and maybe there'll be another one in 3 years. It's constant. What we want to build within our organization in general, not just for this initiative, but a general goal is to build resilient employees that have the ability to absorb high levels of change while minimizing the loss in productivity and disruptive behavior. So again, really reducing the gap between I introduced the change and I adopted the change, really getting that as tight as possible. The characteristics I've put there of the highly resilient peoples and teams that we're focused on are teams that are positive, focused, flexible, organized, and proactive. And following these key principles will not only drive the change for whatever technology or whatever change you're trying to implement, but will also build change-enabled teams who are ready to take on the next big change. And an important role that I feel as a leader, any leader, should be building change capabilities within their team to be successful in the future. We are hoping that as we go into our next initiative that we've added more people to our change management practitioners. We have more employees that can regain their equilibrium faster, maintain those higher levels of productivity, and achieve their objectives and rebound from the demands of any change we're undergoing here at Tyco. Thank you. Now,
Thank
pass
you,
it
Sharon.
over to Vidya from ServiceMax. Vidya?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is Vidya Chidaga. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at ServiceMax. And Sharon, it's such a tough act to follow. I just tweeted that why just IT and field service? I could apply your tips and principles to my life as well. Just fantastic tips on change management, so really thank you. I just want to spend 2 minutes talking about ServiceMax. You've mentioned us a couple of times. The vision we have is to equip every technician in the world with a mobile device with ServiceMax on it. And the broader vision is to try and help companies, big and small, perfect service delivery to try and maximize service revenue and growth, and thereby help organizations, field service organizations, go from the red to the black on their P&L statements. And in this process, eventually help companies delight their customers, helping them perfect the service delivery chain. The ServiceMax solution is an end-to-end complete solution. We have stuff right from contracts, a detailed suite around install base management and warranty management. Our service plans module is deep, very strong. Scheduling, work order management, different flavors of scheduling, manual, dispatch, console-based, optimization-based, and so on. Parts, 2 aspects of parts, be it in the trunk of a technician's car, or it could be reverse logistics, forward and reverse logistics, depot repair. Social, mobile are 2 important elements of our suite. Mobility is just second nature to this business and field service. You guys know that your technicians are on the road. Equip them with a mobile device, and we have the solution for you. Portals are the lens with which your customers and partners can interact with you and your organization, so we've got that as well. One thing I have to call out is that we're built on Force.com. We are native, so all the bells and whistles of the platform from Force is a part of ServiceMax as well. So Tyco was just one of the examples, and you can see that it was just a phenomenal customer example to quote. But not just Tyco. We surveyed our customers, and we have hundreds of customers. A good number of them took the survey, and you can see that they've seen dramatic improvements in their productivity and service revenue and customer satisfaction scores. They were able to bring down the service costs and the average time to repair. So those are just some awesome numbers that I wanted to throw out. I know in the interest of time, we already have so many questions pouring in. I want to cut the chase and just say there's tons of additional resources on ServiceMax.com. Just go to our website, play with some of the assets. There's an ROI calculator. You can look at tons of white paper. Hopefully, Sharon, this change management would be another upcoming white paper as well. And I just want to thank you all for the time, and I want to take the chance to open it up for Q&A.
Thank you, Vidya. Great. So there's a lot of good questions coming in from the audience, and I welcome anyone out there that might want to pick Sharon's brain a bit to go ahead and submit a question now. We're going to try and get to a few here, and like I said, any we can't get to, we'll certainly follow up on via email. We've had a number of people ask if you can have access to today's presentation, so we're not ignoring you, but we will follow up on that after today's event. For now, Sharon, the first question I have here for you is asking, how do you manage the message when sometimes the design changes as you progress through your implementation? Could you maybe give your thoughts on that?
Sure, and certainly ours has, and I think that's why it's really important to make sure that change management in your plan is not a one-time event, but it's something that you update continuously throughout the project. Our design has been changing slightly. We've been very tight at managing it through the operating committee mechanism, but of course there are some changes, and those I think what's most important is which of those design changes will impact the end solution that an employee will see. So there's a lot of design changes for us that are happening kind of in the background that might be very significant, but not significant that an end user or field technician is really going to know or care. So, but the ones that are, we are going out to the organization where through these team meetings, through these department meetings, we're soliciting feedback on these design changes that we're considering, and we're getting back to the teams on what we've decided to do with that change. So it's mainly, I would say, through those team meetings and department meetings that Dan is having and going around and talking to individuals and teams about is how we're communicating that. And then, of course, when we get into training, everything should be frozen at that point, and they'll be trained on the new the go forward design, and we shouldn't have to deal with that concern going forward.
Okay, great. Good. Yeah, that's helpful. So the more you're communicating with them, the more opportunity you have to be telling them about anything that might be going on change-wise and with updates and things like that. That makes sense. Okay, so the next one here is interesting. It's saying, what if you have a change project that requires bringing two different companies with two possibly totally different company cultures together, where you would be standardizing on work practices, leadership? Do you have any thoughts or tips for that?
We're doing something similar right now. It's not two different, it's hundreds of different companies actually in IT. So we've decided to move here at Tyco from a holding company into an operating company, and that means a lot of centralization and standardization, where previously every business unit, and we have many, would operate completely in a completely siloed fashion. And now we're saying, no, we're going to work together. We're going to develop standards. And also, every one of those business units had their own culture, their own brand, everything. So we're going through this as an organization. It's really quite interesting. One of the things that we've done is really focused on intentionally building the future state culture. So I think it's important to understand the culture of these two organizations you're speaking of. What makes those organizations tick? What will people do? How will they react? What is acceptable behaviors and culture in those organizations? What are the big differences? That's important to understand. But it's also very important to say, what culture do we want to build, and intentionally going about building that. Some of the things that we've done as far as going about building that intentional culture is we've defined what we want the culture for this organization to be successful. We've done a number of surveys to really understand how our employees feel about those 8 dimensions of culture that we've defined. So we have a good understanding of where their head and heart is at, their sentiment is at related to these attributes. And therefore, we're able to focus on particular areas that we need to drill on and improve. And for us, at least in the IT department, which is about 900 of the employees at Tyco, it was around boundaryless alignment, which is the area we chose to focus on. So I think it's going through an intentional process of defining culture, and that should really be done as a separate initiative from any technology rollout, but of course it needs to be integrated in from a change management perspective.
Great. Good. Yeah, that's very helpful. Okay, so let's take a look. We have a bunch of them here, and I'm trying to see what would be the best one to go to next. I guess here's a question for you. So in your presentation, you listed a variety of communications methods Tyco is using to interact with your employees about the changes that you're making. So what about for a smaller organization that maybe has less resources, less bandwidth? Are there a couple of those methods that you would recommend, that you feel are absolutely critical?
Yeah, I mean, it's face-to-face, one-on-one, or small group. Just sit down, don't read a script, and just sitting down and talking with people and explaining what you're trying to do and having that dialogue. That is that is the most important. I think as the organization gets bigger, you have to use a lot more of these formal tools, email and social media and whatever. Smaller organizations hopefully have more of an opportunity to really sit face-to-face and get every employee engaged.
Okay. Anything beyond that, like if that's the one, was there anything else on that list that has been people have responded particularly well to that maybe was kind of surprising to you, or that you think would come next after the face-to-face?
From a communication perspective, no, I don't think so. I think they're used to the usual communications here at Tyco via email and via our social media and that sort of thing. I think the small groups seem to be very effective, and that's mainly the best communication tool you can use, individual and small group, face-to-face.
Yep, I would agree with that. Okay. Vidya, let's switch over to you here real quick. There's a question that came in asking if the ServiceMax solution integrates with Salesforce.
Yes, to an extent that we are literally 100% native on force.com from Salesforce. So we share all the objects. We are inherently built on it. We use the standard objects from the CRM offered by Salesforce, and so we just have field service specific custom objects built on top of it. So we absolutely leverage the same platform.
Okay.
I know for our end users, we're implementing both, and they won't know when they've left Salesforce and gone into ServiceMax. It looks like one holistic, and it is one holistic tool.
Yep, okay. Good. And then, Sharon, here's one. I think we have time for one final question for you. We have someone asking if you can share a postmortem experience.
A good one or a bad one?
Maybe one of each.
I could share a lot. We don't have a lot of time here. I'll share first one that didn't go as well, at least for some individuals, and it was a real learning experience for me, where we were frankly not really changing processes at all. We were only changing the user interface, so how it looked on the screen to them, getting them to use a mouse versus just the keyboard, that sort of thing. And it was a simple, well, it wasn't that simple, but it was, we thought it was a relatively simple change, and we didn't focus at all on change management in this project. And this was early in my career. I think I was very surprised to see the reaction when we went live. And we communicated, we did training. It wasn't as if we completely ignored it, but the reaction of many of the employees who had been there for 30 years using their hotkeys or however it was that they did their work yesterday, their whole world had just changed by asking them to use a mouse and a different user interface. And so what I learned from that is to not underestimate the change. The change for me, going to that new user interface, was nothing, but the change for others, everybody's a different experience. It was incredibly significant. And in fact, we had one lady, and I can still remember her eyes. She was so stressed out, had to go home for the day. She was so stressed on go-live day. So that was a learning for me on something that didn't go well, and in fact, something that triggered my interest in change management and understanding it more. Certainly, we have examples of where I've implemented an ERP solution, and if you're familiar with ERP, it impacts the entire organization. I mean, when we've implemented all the modules, so it impacts finance, it impacts sales order entry, purchasing, manufacturing, distribution. Everybody in the organization is impacted. And not only that, it is significant process change involved in an ERP implementation. Actually, ERP is all about business process change. The technology piece is easy. And one example, we did a lot of best practices in change management. I think you can always do more. You always think, oh, I should have done this as well. But we had a very smooth go live. We had nobody frozen at their desk, not knowing what to do now, not knowing how to do their job anymore, while we went through a stabilization period, as any initiative would. It's natural. We went live and we're up and running immediately with product shipping and revenue being booked, and employees, doing what they needed to do. And one thing we did in that experience is sounds kind of silly, but it was a manufacturing environment, a distribution environment, big space with lots of people, is we had people with bright yellow hats on, and they were there for the first 4 weeks after go live to be there just to answer questions and help people along and check in on how people were doing. And they just walked the floors for 4 weeks. There was a lot of our project team members. They worked shifts with the folks, and they were called upon a lot just to answer a quick little question. Not a big deal, but something that could potentially have frozen the organization from getting that shipment out the door. So, good experience.
That's great. Yeah. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yeah. we have them all.
There's a little bit of all of that, I'm sure. Well, that's great. So, again, I just want to remind everyone we are out of time for now, but we will certainly be addressing the other questions that came in that we didn't get to offline. So just keep an eye out for some communication there. Sharon, thank you so very much for sharing your insights today. We really appreciate it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a topic that I hear a lot come up, companies that, don't think about this as much as they should before they begin a project. So it's great information for folks to have, and we appreciate your time. And Vidya, thank you very much for your time as well. We hope everyone that joined us today has a great day, and thank you for joining us on the webcast today.
Thank you.